Welcome to day 25 of the 30-day video challenge, the story of me and what I do. Well, I had a story for tonight and then something new popped up a few hours ago. So I decided that that would be a more relevant story since it was fresh in my mind. And so tonight's story is the apple and the tree. So for those of you that may not know, there's an old adage that states the apple does not fall far from the tree. And this is something that I've used in talking with families or parents in particular for a very long time, but I'll tie that in a minute after the story. Tonight, Donovan had a soccer game. And during the soccer game, one of the opposing players got frustrated at the during the game, which is natural, right? These are 8-year-old kids. They're not, mature yet. They're still growing and becoming great individuals. But they got a little bit heated, and the opponent basically turned and grabbed or punched one of the players on Donovan's team. So the ref, instantly stopped the game and ejected the player. Then which was great. What I saw, number one, was taking control of the situation and stopping play so that nothing got escalated. But then as the kid left the field, I didn't see who started, but the team on Donovan's, the player on Donovan's team and the player that got ejected basically started mouthing off to each other. And so all the part that we heard was, one kid said, idiot. And then the other kid said, well, you're stupid. Ref turned around and he ejected, the player on Donovan's team. Kudos, right? That's not the behavior that we're going to reward. So, teaching the kids that, all right, even though this kid may have punched you or thrown you down or exactly whatever had happened, right? That was bad. But you mouthing off back to him is also bad. Teaching the kids, try not to react to a negative situation, or what they say, be the bigger person, turn the other cheek, all kinds of adages that you could throw in for that one. But then where the apple and the tree part of it comes in was within about 30 to 60 seconds, the parent comes flying out and starts yelling at the ref. So right away, we're all sitting there looking at each other going, well, no wonder the kid has anger issues. If this is a parent's reaction in order, or emotional reaction to a situation, well, that's what the kid's learning. So another part to this is we say kids' brains are always on record. And so they're learning from the parents how to behave 24/7. And so at that point, then we watched some more. Then the parent took it and went to the main office to complain to the coaches that, his child was wronged. And all of the parents are sitting there going, we all saw what we saw. And so for this parent to be so irate to then go yell at everybody in the main office about it, just again goes to show you that this is the role model that this child has, and that's how he's learning to deal with situations. So what's it going to be like when he's 13 or 14? What's it going to be like when he's 18 and an adult, right? How's he going to treat his significant other? How's he going to treat his family when he grows up? And so that's part of the hard part of my passion and my job is seeing the kids that I can't help. There's nothing I can do for this child because he's learning it from his parent. And parents, it's an interesting dynamic because while I have the ability to, seriously improve a child's life, I can only do it with the parents' support and teamwork. There are plenty of times where I'll work on something with a child in class and start to develop their confidence, and within seconds, parent can just tear it right down because they have more influence in some areas than I do. Now, again, it's also the reverse. There'll be plenty of times, as a parent, how many times have you told their kids to make their bed or clean their room? Well, I say it once or twice, and guess what? Suddenly it starts getting done because there's a different role and a different example, at that point. So it's unfortunate, but at the same time, I've had to learn over the years, you can't help somebody that doesn't want help. And so I've had to just reconcile that and move on and work on being a good example and helping the kids that we are able to help. So where this also ties in, where I've talked to other parents about it, is it's kind of a bitter pill, and it's tough when parents hear it for the first time, and unfortunately, most people won't say it. Remember, way back from day one of my core values is honesty, and so if I hurt your feelings trying to help your child, then so be it. If it's going to help your child. So what I'm referring to is whenever a parent comes to me and they're like, my kid is so stubborn and they just don't listen. Great. Which one of you taught him that? Your husband, or your wife, your grandparents, who in the family taught him it? It was normally one or two of the immediate parents, and if not them, the grandparents or the uncle or the aunt. But 95% of the time, it's one of the two parents. And again, this is where also a lot of our struggle comes in. We have a lot of divorce situations. Now, you got divorced for a very good reason. The two of you just didn't see eye to eye and don't get along. Unfortunately, the child is still in the middle and gets to go to both households. And one of the two households probably isn't a great role model. So you spend a lot of your time undoing the things that they learned at one place while the other place is undoing what you're doing. And it's a constant battle back and forth. So it's very refreshing when we do see situations where the ex and the current family, the current spouse and everybody can be civil and get along. It's like be on the same page and help the child. And unfortunately, and from my experience, that doesn't happen nearly enough. I've also seen the extreme opposite, which was really a sad one to see. It was at the point, and this is the first time of me hearing this in 25 years of dealing with families. The two parents could not communicate directly. They had to communicate through a court-ordered app. And that was so that everything was transcribable and it was, everything was able to be proved who said what. That's how bad the relationship was. And just to hear two humans, having to resort to that was really disheartening and sad. And I just felt bad, for the relationship part. I'm not going to judge, you're at fault or he's at fault, she's at fault, she did this, he did. It doesn't matter. It's like, move on. But for whatever reason, with this situation or that particular situation, it didn't work. So I'm glad that most parents, don't have to go that far. It still saddens me that a lot of parents, still have anger and despise and lots of, nasty words for each other. I understand why, but at the same time, it's how do you get past it? What's best for the child? And there isn't one answer. I'm not saying that just get over it or you shouldn't feel that way. That's not what this is about. It's about what can you do to make it better? Can you make it better? There's another human being involved. And so at that point, there's only so much you can do. And after that, you just got to clean up the mess. So going back to, when I talk to parents and I'm like, well, did you teach it to them or did your spouse teach it to them? Sometimes they get offended. And, but guess what? 9 times out of 10, they'll say, oh, yeah, I did that. Or, well, yep, that's my spouse. And so at that point, great. Well, now we can go to work. We know where the issue's coming from. If we make that adult aware of it, they can have the opportunity to choose if they want to stop showing that example or be that negative role model and or get on board. So once again, this is one of the things of where we say, it's not karate, it's prestige. This has absolutely nothing to do with punches, blocks, and kicks. This has everything to do with about helping your child grow and become a confident leader. And Mr. Horton gave us a great post on our social media today, which I instantly, cheered for, swiped, and put on our page. And it's that, prestige won't work for a child whose parents don't support them and believe in what we do. And that's 100% true. There's absolutely nothing I can do to help a child if the parent is just going to undermine and or ignore all the things that we teach. So the other interesting one that happened today, it was a busy day. Christy and I had a great time, shopping and getting ready for belt testing and doing all of our things, and all of these other events in between gave us a lot to discuss and talk about and mull over for a little bit. There's on rare occasions we'll run into a child that for whatever reason they've been taught. Again, we go back to parents teaching the kids how to behave. The child's been taught that it's okay to hit. And, we're talking anywhere from 4, 5, or maybe even a 6-year-old. If it was a 7 or older, totally different story. But this normally happens, maybe 2 or 3 times a year in the Little Dragons class, to where the child thinks the best way to interact with me is to come up and hit me. And so, 26 years of working with kids, I've found effective ways to deal with it. And so in the old days, it was about ego, and you'd yell and scream at the kid and tell him what a bad person he was, and guess what? That's not the way it works. So this incident happened just this past week. So the child came up and is in the middle of class. So I'm teaching 10, 12 kids, and this child makes it a point to come over to me and hits me. So first time, I ignore him. And second time, I ignore him. Third time, in the same class, I ignore him. So he's not happy because he's not getting the response that he's looking for. So I'm not sure what type of attention he wanted from me, but he was obviously trying to get my attention. Well, when he tried it the 4th time, he got my attention. And at this point, the 3 times that it's happened, the kids don't like my attention at that point, because I'm going to teach you a lesson. And at the same time, right, what's to me the wrong way is, to smack the kid, hit the kid, demean the kid, demoralize the kid. There's all kinds of things you can do to really mess it up. But I'm very deliberate and conscious of what I'm doing. And so he came up to hit me. I stopped him. I grabbed his shirt and I gently pulled him as I dropped down to his face level, so we were face to face. And in a calm voice, I tell him, I hit back. So if you hit me again, I'm going to hit you back. And it's going to hurt. So let's not do that. Right? And again, 9 times out of 10, it works. And so the point of this story, which was interesting, was right away, the parent was like, thank you. Oh my gosh. I've been trying to get him to stop this, or they're embarrassed or they're upset. My point being, they're 100% on board with the way I handled it. What's interesting was the phone call that we got today from a different parent in the class was bothered. They were bothered about that approach, and they were concerned about me hitting kids. And I'm just looking at this and listening to the parent's point of view. And again, it's just, there's so many instances where if I get if you're bothered by something I've done, but if the parent's there and you don't see the parent bothered in the least by what I did, should you be upset by it being on the outside and not having the information about what's going on? Maybe not even seeing the whole thing? Because again, I'm pretty sure they didn't see him come up and hit me 3 times. And that's fine. I wouldn't expect you to. In class, you're watching your child. So, but to make a judgment is, I guess, what I want to get at as the second point today, off of some of the information. It's interesting to me that there's that stigma of judgment out there on everything, and we know that people judge. So it was an interesting conversation. I was able to diffuse it, and Christy took the phone call first, and she does a great job of relating to people and getting all the information. I have a tendency of being Well, it's not even a tendency. My sorry, my screen just went dark there. There's four personality types, and I can share that a whole nother day. But basically, I'm the director, and the director personality is very matter of fact. We're very goal oriented and very quick moving and decisive. So in that, I can have a tendency to sound harsh, to come off as cold, because I'm not going to always. I've learned to get better with this, but I'm not going to always decorate the cake. I just want to eat the thing. So I'm not always going to give you all of the flowery language and the soft warm up before I tell you my answer. There's going to be times where I shoot the answer, and so when that happens, it can take people off guard. So that's one of the many things that I'm working on is how to be the director, but be able to share better with people. And so, again, going back to the phone call, so we ended it with they understood what I was doing and where I was coming from, and were no longer concerned. And so it's interesting to think how many times are you judged by somebody else for simply what you do without all the facts? And then again, more importantly, how do you handle it? So once again, I think this goes back to, being the walking example. It would have been super easy for me to get offended, by this person. Do you know who I am? That's one of my favorites when I hear somebody say that. Like, no, should I? And I don't expect parents to know my background, to know, everything that I've done to study child development over the past 26 years and all of my experiences. That's not their responsibility. And I can understand because this parent was a white belt, so they're newer to the school, that they haven't developed the trust. There's things I can do to the brown belts and black belts that would seem almost like murder to a white belt parent, and the black belt parents just sit back and they go, he's got this, right? I've developed that trust over years that they know anything that I'm doing is for the best interest of the child, and that I would never actually let any harm come to a child. That's the antithesis of what I stand for. So just thinking about that though, what have you done that gets judged or misjudged? And or more importantly, what is in your control? When have you judged another situation? So that's why you'll hear me also say in class, right versus wrong. I don't like right and wrong. If somebody right away says, well, that's wrong. Okay, well then you're telling me you know the right way. I don't think there is the right way, right? One of my fun series on Disney that I get to watch is The Mandalorian. This is the way. Right? It's pretty cool. It's not this is the right way, right? This is the way. And so that just kind of popped in my head. Choom, kind of a squirrel there for a moment for you. But it's interesting to see, catch yourself when you're being judgmental, and then do some internal thinking. Why am I judging them? Right? What is it that triggered that process? And a lot of times judgment comes from jealousy. Are you consciously jealous or unconsciously jealous of that person, their position, their belongings? Who knows? There's a whole nother 5-hour series we could get into talking about that. But ultimately, I just wanted to share with you guys tonight, the apple does not fall far from the tree. So what things does your child do? Let's leave you with that version of it. What things does your child do that annoy the hell out of you? They're probably something that you do. and as tough as that is to hear, it's not that far from the truth. So I would love to hear your stories about that down in the comments below so I can read them. My child's super stubborn, just like me. My child doesn't listen, just like me. And so that'll be a fun little adventure for me to read for you guys. And then at the same time, I guess one more thing with that. There's a lot of times, and this ties into the right and wrong. When a child has a behavior, let's say, for example, a younger girl. We had, it doesn't matter the name. we've had a couple of younger girls come in, say 5, 6, possibly 7 years old, and we're just very at what we would call stubborn or bullheaded. And the parents are basically talking to me, and or they talk to Christy first about they're frustrated because they're just so stubborn, and it's just awful because getting them to do anything is horrible. And I look at them and I'm like, okay, you're thinking the now, right? So they're in during the conversation, they're basically asking me to help make them less stubborn. And I look at them right away and I'm like, heck no. I don't want to make them less stubborn, because guess what? We want to take that behavior so that when they're 15 or 16 and being pressured into doing drugs or having sex or doing something illegal, they're going to have that stubbornness in them, and it's going to help them and possibly save their life. And again, when a parent hears that, it's 9 times out of 10, the first time that's even been brought up, they're suddenly like, oh, okay, right? So when you see a behavior, embrace it, look for the good. Every opportunity is a learning opportunity. And how can we channel it? I don't want to get rid of any behaviors. If your child can't focus because they're so carefree and they're so imaginative, fantastic. Let's run with that. Let's help them become focused while teaching them to use their imagination to be great. Again, we hear, parents, try to push the imagination away from them, their creativity, or they downplay it. Oh, stop telling so many stories. No, tell me more, right? Kids, especially as they grow up, they're going to have to be able to create, and using that imagination to, well, I could take this and this and this, and if I put them together, I make something new. That's going to be something that can definitely support them for their whole life. But that, I think, is enough for tonight. So apple doesn't fall from the tree. Share your story below. Let me know what things your child does that drive you crazy that you taught them. And I'll talk to you guys tomorrow. Have a great night.